colleagues, and friends joining us virtually and to those here in Los Angeles. Welcome back to the 2022 HACR Executive Programs. Our business sessions this afternoon have been generously sponsored by Coca-Cola and Bank of America. Now, welcome back to the stage the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility's Vice President of Strategic Engagement and Initiatives, Jai Vargas.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. I want to give an incredible thank you and incredible welcome to our platinum sponsor, the Coca-Cola Company. As you can see, we've got branding all ready for this conversation. I'm going to read you a brief snippet of my Fireside chat colleague. His name is Pablo Largacha. Pablo has been with the Coca-Cola Company for almost 25 years in a variety of international assignments. His career also includes 9 years of being an attorney in-house, as well as in the petrochemical industry. Pablo is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and Pablo currently is the Vice President of Business Planning and Integration for Public Affairs, Communications, Sustainability, and Marketing Assets. It's my honor to welcome our platinum sponsor, Pablo Largacha from the Coca-Cola Company, who's going to give a few minutes of sponsor remarks, and then we're going to sit down and have a nice little fireside chat. So Pablo, welcome to the stage.
Hello everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you for joining the HACR Executive Program. Again, my name is Pablo Largacha. On behalf of the Coca-Cola Company, it is our honor to co-sponsor this executive program and our privilege to work with Sid and the entire HACR team to advance access to opportunities for the Hispanic community. I work with a group of proud Latinos and Latinas at the Coca-Cola Company, such as Alfredo Rivera, the president of Coca-Cola North America, or B. Perez, the chief executive communications, public affairs, and sustainability officer, my boss, both of whom embody the diversity we strive to achieve in our company leadership. Our company purpose is to refresh the world and make a difference. The values of diversity, equity, and inclusion are deeply embedded and woven into the way we work and connect with each other, and impacting everything from our hiring practices to our leadership pipeline to our actual business decisions. We have developed two aspirational goals for 2030. One is to be 50% by women globally, and the other one is to reflect the census data at all job levels in the US. Our inclusion networks play a very important role in accomplishing this aspiration by influencing the direction and encouraging the acceleration of DE&I initiatives. These associate-led networks are recognized as valued voices in our efforts to enhance cultural sensitivity and awareness, in addition to supporting business-related diversity initiatives. Beyond the four walls of the company, our supplier diversity policy helps shape who we choose to work with and why, ensuring that we are providing all suppliers equal access to purchasing opportunities. And last but not least, we support and work with community partners such as HACR to continuously listen, learn, and improve our practices. We are grateful for Sid's leadership and for all the work his amazing team does. So thank you, and please continue to enjoy the program.
Bienvenidos.
Gracias.
Gracias, Pablo. Gracias por estar aquí. Welcome to the Hacer Familia. I appreciate you and your Coca-Cola Company support. I'm so excited to have this conversation because when I met Pablo on the phone just a couple of days ago, he shared with me the incredible amount of, I'd like to say, multi-directional career trajectory that he's had. You have moved all over the world, Colombia, Costa Rica, Singapore, and now the US. You live in Atlanta, Georgia. Can you share with us a little bit about how, these opportunities presented themselves to you or how you asked for these opportunities in your career?
Thank you, Jai. It has been a wonderful journey of discovery, of continuous learning, of curiosity about cultures. One of the things that I very quickly realized is that in your company and with your company portfolio of products, you instantly assume that they're all managed and perceived the same way in every culture. And since I was little, I had this desire to travel and see places and experience different cultures. And I made it known very early on in my development program and my aspirations with the company that one of my objectives was to live this expat life, to experience the different ways in which we do our own job in different cultures. So I think the first thing is taking the initiative to make it known to your supervisors, to your coaches, to your mentors, if you have one, that this is part of your professional aspirations. I would mention the second part is being very clear with, I guess, your family becomes your second company. Because when you're opting for an expat life, you basically lose part of your support network. And that has different implications to the way you live your family life. It becomes more connected, interdependent with your professional life. It becomes another mini company. Hopefully nobody's firing anyone. But everyone has a vote. And from day one, I was very clear with them in that if any member of the family felt that they had in any way lost their desire to continue in that life, my work with Coca-Cola was contingent to that decision, and we would all go back. I was born in Colombia. I was raised and educated in Colombia. My wife is Colombian. My 2 kids were born in Colombia. So it was a very, very conscious decision to involve the family in your professional decisions, which isn't all that common in many places.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about the ways in which your family dynamic sort of acclimated to the cultures. So for example, you lived in Singapore for some time. Tell us a little bit about the way that your sons and your children acclimated to those cultures.
Yeah, we had several transitions, very nice transitions. We lived in Costa Rica for several years when they were little. Costa Rica is basically a big park, so they had a wonderful time.
Wow.
It's on weekends you go to the beach or to the volcano or you go rafting.
Wow.
So they were having a great time. And then you start getting into the difficult decisions. Okay, we moved to Argentina, saying goodbye to their friends, trying to establish new friendships, new relationships. We lived there for a couple of years, and then off to Singapore, again, the same process. And eventually, when they were teenagers, a senior and a sophomore in high school, in school, in Singapore, I asked them, have we totally messed up your lives with these constant changes? And they said, well, you know, at times they were difficult because saying goodbye to friends and then getting to a place where the cliques and the groups of friends have already been formed and consolidated for some time, and trying to fit in and kind of being flexible to adapt, it was a difficult process. But if we were to do it again, we would be 100% in. And we see it today in the way that they are able to relate to people from totally different cultures. They see beyond the difference. They try to find the commonalities. And when they started college here in the US, it was probably the first time they had started from zero any of those educational processes, because the previous ones, they came kind of mid-flight to try to insert themselves in a different culture. Here, they were leaders from day one. So from a family perspective, I think it is one of the best things you can do. It's not for everyone, that type of life, but if it's about generating and embedding the skills and the flexibility to pivot and adapt and work with different cultures and be open to differences and trying to find the commonalities to work together in one direction, I think there's no better training than that. There's a trade-off, obviously, because they miss the time with their extended family, they miss the time with friends that they forged great friendships with in the past, but at the end, in today's world, they're still connected, they're still friends. And that family component, it makes or breaks your expat life, your international professional career. And we've seen either careers break down because of family issues, or families break down because of career prevalence over family issues. And there's always that balance that you need to be very aware of.
That's fantastic. And given the fact that you've had the opportunity to now experience life and leadership and management within the Coca-Cola Company in Latin America and now the US, what can you tell us about cultural intelligence and how leaders can manage in both spaces?
I think it's one of the most important assets you as a professional can have, is that ability to navigate and bridge cultural particularities. Let's not call them differences. But if you're in an American company, I've seen so many instances of American executives trying to lead international operations as if they were still in the US. And it doesn't work. I mean, I lived in Japan for 9 months, and I saw that what really enhances your ability to lead is being aware of the particularities of how you connect, motivate, and lead among cultural differences. And the way you lead teams in the US is going to be very different from the way you lead teams in Japan, which is going to be very different from the way you lead teams in Europe or in Argentina. So being aware of those cultural differences and having had the experience to bridge them is going to be an asset which is tremendously important for you in your professional life. An asset which I haven't seen very frequently here in the US. And We all know that there are nationalities where people are more keen to go and experience other cultures, and others that are more keen to staying put and being close to their families, and that's fine. But companies need to rely on talent that is malleable and flexible and able to bridge those differences. The other thing that I've seen in brief time here in the States is Americans are not that keen about uprooting, and sometimes that has to do, I think, with comfort. If I look at the Hispanic, Latino community, many of us come from countries that have gone through struggles, that have issues, whether political or social or economic, and all of a sudden this is a breath of fresh air, of predictability to a certain extent, of comfort, and moving to another place that probably doesn't have those same conditions doesn't seem that enticing. But I really believe that is a fantastic competence that you can acquire and give to your children for future.
That's wonderful. And how about the individuals that report to you? Have you been able to mentor and sponsor them and advance them to perhaps international roles or opportunities?
Absolutely. I've been trying to replicate that same process that I benefited from with the people who I work with in my teams. Many of them have already have international careers, but whether it's a coaching or mentorship or sponsorship, it's, I think, one of the most important resources that our team has to discover those possibilities. So definitely has been one of my priorities, helping them to work with and become enamored about the ability to do what they do in a different place. Mm-hmm. I think in today's world, the opportunities are not that many compared to how it was in the past, probably a consequence of economic pressures that every company is having. But there's still opportunities to do short-term assignments, short-term experiences, working on task forces on international projects. All of those ways to experience different cultures, I think are ways to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And I want to read your title, because you have a very long title. And I would love for you to explain to us what encompasses all of the roles that you do and how you got to this particular point in your career. Okay. You are the Vice President of Business Planning, Integration for Public Affairs, Communications, Sustainability, and Marketing Assets. How in the world do you do it all?
It's an interesting, somebody was saying this morning that we're used to, Latinos are used to do whatever needs to be done and nobody else wants to do. So it has been added kind of appendixes to the main role. So I'm B's Chief of Staff. Mm-hmm. So I kind of manage the Office of Public Affairs, Communications, and Sustainability. And because B, my boss, comes from marketing and she managed marketing assets, she still does. Our CEO decided that she was doing a great job with that and kept that side of the business with her, which is our retail stores, like World of Coca-Cola, if you have been to any, the licensing agreements, Sprite Mentos and Coke Mentos, Tic Tacs. That part of the business is kind of independent but connected to public affairs, communications, and sustainability. But the business planning for the global function is basically tailored to build a plan for the global function that then the operating units implement. And integration means that I have a team, an agile team that works with me that we allocate to different projects. So it's kind of the agile model of working and focusing on one project at a time rather than having different responsibilities. And we also do the capability training for the entire function.
Fantastic.
So that's...
You're very busy
Yeah.
as a father, right? How do you do it all? I love to ask that of men. I'm like, you have children, how do you do it all? Right? Because we always get that question as women. Has there ever been any professional development programs or a coach or a sponsor, something that you've invested time, money, or energy into that really made a difference in your career?
Yeah, coaching has always been there in the early stages of my career. It was a way of identifying the gaps, those soft spots where I needed to focus my attention, and understanding how other people, how I was perceived, to use the term used in the past conversation. And then mentoring, I soon after I started building this relationship with leaders in the company, I identified the person who I admired, that I was working with, that I wanted to be my mentor. And fortunately, he has been my mentor ever since and up until today. It has a component of knowing each other personally and spending time just talking about stuff, not necessarily my competencies or gaps or aspirations. It's about getting to know each other and forming a friendship with that person, because that's the way they're going to be completely honest with what they see that you could be doing better. And if done well, that mentor becomes your sponsor, because that's the person who in the what we call the PDFs, the professional development forums, can tell other leaders, if you're looking for someone with these characteristics, this person I would recommend. And it is very important to know that this is not trafficking influences. This is not, because ultimately the reputation of the mentor is involved in the advice they're giving. So it'll quickly crumble if it's not done in a very objective and precise way.
That's fantastic. You know, some of your work involves public affairs and crisis management. How did you get into that work? What appeals to you about that work? And share with us a little bit more so we can learn.
Maybe because we Latin Americans have gone through so many crises, you kind of become used to them and actually appreciate the value and the development value that's behind managing a crisis. And managing crisis is part of public affairs and communications. And I quickly discovered, it all started because we had a big issue. Actually, I was still in Colombia back then. And it was allegations of union busting in Colombia of one of our bottlers there. Unjustified allegations, I may add. But it kind of, you start seeing people in the company who would rather not touch those issues with a 10-foot pole, and because they think that their reputation is going to be tainted, their performance is going to be tainted. I personally believe, and someone mentioned it this morning, that there's a huge, it was Dean actually, there's a huge opportunity behind a crisis. There is a huge opportunity. We've seen that with many cases of textbook cases on crisis management, about how a corporation or individuals dealt with one was actually an opportunity to increase reputation and increase the image of a product or a company. So I think it's not just for the product and the company, but also for your personal and professional development. There are very few instances in which you learn so much about a company culture, a company values, and people values as when they're managing a crisis. Because when everything is good, everyone is friends with everyone and everyone loves each other. When things go bad, then you start people jumping ship. You start seeing people trying to evade you when you walk through the hallways of the company. And when I say people, I mean senior leaders. There's a huge opportunity, personal opportunity to learn, but also a huge opportunity for your professional development. So managing that issue eventually led me to work here in Atlanta in what was then called the Issues Management Team. And we were focused on environmental issues, human rights issues, you name it. And that was probably the best learning school for me in the public affairs and communications area. And senior leaders always appreciate a firefighter. Someone who is willing to take the bull by the horns and say, we're going to fix it, and we're going to do it the right way, and I'm going to help you get through this.
That's incredible. I love that you shared that. I've never really thought of that as an opportunity to develop your professional development, right? And the perception others have of you, of being a problem solver, a firefighter. When everyone is running out, you say, I know how to fix this. Watch, right? And you run in and you're strategic.
Or I don't know, but we're going to find out.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to find an extinguisher here somewhere. That is fantastic. What do you think has been the biggest challenge in your career with the Coca-Cola Company? And what are some skills that you have within you that helped you through that really difficult challenge that you had, whether it was a personal, professional challenge or with the company?
I actually started my career with Coke, with the Coke system as a lawyer. Because at that time in Colombia we didn't have the public affairs and communications function, everything that had to do with NGOs, government, media, problems, they would send to the lawyer, and that's how I began doing it. And then when I got the opportunity of choosing, okay, do I want to continue being a lawyer, or do I want to continue the road of public affairs, communications, sustainability, I decided for the latter. And you think that probably I did it because someone was saying this morning, okay, but it has so many more problems, so many more issues than being a lawyer. Yeah, but it allows you a lot of creativity, of working with people, working with different areas of the company. You're not bound by strict limitations of what you cannot do. And that eventually led me to manage several challenging issues. when I was in Latin America, Venezuela banned our launch of Coke Zero because they said that it had a sweetener that was banned by law, which was not true. Eventually, we discovered that it had been an issue with the government lab that had done the test. But I mean, you're dealing with issues of not being able to operate in a market, to continue operating in a market. The human rights allegations in Colombia, environmental allegations in India. Sometimes the company makes mistakes and you have to deal with it. Sometimes it's allegations that do not have a basis or evidence to it, and then you have to deal also with that fact. What we were hearing this morning from Dean on enterprise risk management is such an important part of the company, of understanding that things can go wrong and how you as a company are going to manage it, even if you have to blush and say, we made a mistake and we're going to make it right. And that's where the values and the beliefs upon which a company is founded come to life. And that's what is really satisfactory when dealing with those challenges.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much about your career and the different responsibilities that you've had over so many years with the Coca-Cola Company, and the way that you've mentored others and advocated for them to also work across countries, across borders, and learn about cultural intelligence, and how you've managed to do this as a dad with children. That's it for my questions. So I'm going to look to my colleague, Xiomara. And if you have a question in the audience or a virtual question, I see a few hands, which I love. Xiomara is going to come over to you right over here. Our friend with Nielsen IQ has a question.
Hi, Pablo. My name is Daniel, and I'm from Mexico. I came to the US 10 years ago, and I remember when I was at school, there was this information about the Latino or the Latino executive. It was very hard to go abroad, and one of the reasons is La Familia. It's very hard to leave your familia behind. You mentioned that. I was having a conversation with some of the folks in the room and in the young room that they are taking the other training, and they were saying that they have their familias and sometimes they don't want to leave. So how do you think about that? How can we empower them? Because the more they can go abroad and have those experiences, we're going to be able to propel this, not just in the US, but globally. So what are your thoughts to try to change that mindset?
Yeah, I can talk about my experience, but that doesn't mean that it applies to everyone, because we're dealing with kids here and families, and every family is different, and every circumstance that you're going through is going to be different. In our case, it was presented as an adventure, and I love the last sentence from Dean's presentation this morning, that you don't have to have plans, but you have to plan. Because the thing about an international career is that you cannot plan too far ahead. You're basically going with the flow. It's very fluid. So you have to be very quick to react if it's not working. And sometimes it works, and we thought it was going to be a 6-7 year experience for adventure for the kids. And then it's like when you hop on a train and you see, we'll go to the next station and come back, and then it's so nice in the next station that you say, okay, maybe the next one is even better, and then you go to the next one and next one and next one. It takes a lot of conversations depending on the age and the situation of the kids and the family. When they're small, it's easier. At first, they just don't mind as long as they're with their parents and the family's doing well, they're okay. When they're teenagers, as they grow up, it becomes more difficult. But I would strongly encourage you to consider the possibility, and if the possibility arises, to encourage, make the case for the benefits of having that experience abroad. It tightens family bonds as you cannot imagine, because basically you live, your life spins around the family, and that's it. When we were in Colombia, we could leave our kids with the extended family, with the helpers, and we were having lots of activities with friends our own age. When you have these experiences, that kind of stops, or at least is very different. It's all about the family, it's all about the kids, and it strengthens your family bonds to a great extent. It's what I've experienced. Again, not everyone can tell the same story. But to your question, I think it's painting a picture of the advantages and the opportunities that will open, not just for the mom or the dad who's working with the company, but for the kids expanding their horizons. Every time we go back home to visit extended family and I see my kids with their cousins, you see the difference. You see the difference between growing up in a bubble and growing up in a multicultural environment where they were in the same school with people from different cultures, religions, beliefs, genders, preferences, etc. So again, make the case, and it doesn't necessarily need to negate the challenges, but the opportunities far outgrow the challenges, I think.
And we have one more question.
Muy buenas tardes, Pablo. First of all, thank you so much for being here, and to our Coca-Cola family for supporting HACR. I am Liz Berman, the President and CEO of Continental Food and Beverage, otherwise known as Inca Cola USA, a brand of the Coca-Cola Company.
Which we love.
I just wanted you to share with a lot of us who are entrepreneurs here, women, Latina entrepreneurs, what are some of the initiatives or one initiative that the Coca-Cola Company has taken on globally to empower women at the global level?
Sure. It was a fantastic experience. It was scary for a while because when the CEO at the time announced it, it caught us a little bit off guard. And when we started doing the numbers, it meant that there was a lot of work to do, but 60% more or less of our sales in developing countries are done through traditional channel, so mom and pop stores, tienditas. And almost 60% of those stores, 70 even in some places, are either owned or operated by a woman who has never had any training, skills, doesn't belong to networks of peers that can help mentor them, or do not have access to finance. So it was one of those first opportunities where we saw the chance of, instead of passing the hat to the operations to fund a program, make the case that we were developing that channel for the business. And by the way, we were helping empower these women. So we created the 5x20 program, which was empowering 5 million women by 2020, and this was developed in 2010. And the women were part of our value chain. So they could be working a farm growing or fruits or tea or coffee that would ultimately go into our beverages, or they could sell our products in the tienditas, or they could be waste pickers. And that's how it started. And the operation saw the value. We did some pilot programs where the training that we provided to these women increased sales of their mom and pop stores between 17 and 20%. Not just our products, every product they sold, but it made the case to the operation, okay, there's something behind this program that's good to grow the business. I don't just have to take money from one pocket and give it to you. And that's how it started. Make a long story short, in 2020, we were able to complete 6 million women who were empowered through all that value chain.
That is impressive. Bueno, Pablo, muchísimas gracias.
Con mucho
Your
gusto.
story is just incredible. We're inspired. We hope to walk in your footsteps. One day I will work internationally as well. And thank you so much for spending time with us, for always supporting HACR. We love the Coca-Cola Company, and salud.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Awesome.
This way, right?
Yes.